Ladies and gentlemen, the journey for focus, clarity, and mental mastery is about to begin. Live from WSIC Studios on the shores of Lake Norman, the show that gives you the tools to think sharper, sleep deeper, manage stress, and unlock your full mental potential. This is Your Brain Matters. And now, with over 30 years of brain science, more than 70,000 brain analyses, bringing neuroscience to everyday life, here's your host, Dr. Tim Royer.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. It's a great day for Amy Royer because I have taken over Doc's seat as the host of this show. You might be in trouble because we don't know if we're going to talk about my dog or my grandkids for the next hour. Nobody even knows. Everybody's like a captive audience. So anyway, we actually do have a great show ready to go for you. In place of Dr. Tim Royer, I have two amazing gentlemen in the studio with me, and we are going to have a great show where we're going to really unpack why the eyes matter to the brain, because we already know your brain matters, and we're just so big on that. And every week we are hoping that we let somebody know some more about why their brain matters. And so today we're going to venture off into vision and ocular motor importance to the brain. And I have the best people in the studio with me. So we're going to start out with, to my left, I have John Wierenga. He runs Inner Armor, and he also has many other things that he does with Royer Neuroscience. He's brilliant and has been working with Dr. Royer, I think, at least 8 years.
Five
geez,
years. Yeah.
5. Well, I overestimated.
We've got 8 years of work
I
done.
think you have done that much work in 5 years. So anyway, so John Wierenga, I want him to go ahead and introduce himself better because I knew I would just mess that all up. So here we go. Here's John Wierenga.
You did great. Thank you, Amy. Yeah. Or do I call you Nurse Amy on the show?
I'm
going to call you Amy.
Yeah,
I'm going to call you
that's
Amy.
good.
So
yeah.
Thank you, Amy. Good to be here today.
Yeah.
Really excited to talk about vision and the brain with Dr. Paul Gammage. So yes, John Wierenga, CEO and co-founder of Inner Armor with Dr. Royer. We've been working together for 5 years now, mainly in the peak performance space. So I know most of the time on the show, you guys talk about more of the clinical side and things like that, but we also have the piece of the business or a different business with Dr. Royer's expertise on peak performance. So that's what I help him run, and we work with a lot of universities and some professional athletes on optimizing the brain and the eyes and vision so that they can perform at their best potential.
Yeah. And when I think about the vision and what we've done with it within our practice, you have been exposed to by far the largest number of people working on vision because we were, doing this one-on-one, whereas you're working with groups and masses of vision training. So your number one partner in vision is Dr. Paul Gammage, who we have in the studio with us today. And by the time we are done, you all are going to want to have him as your eye doctor. But I'm going to tell you right now, you cannot because he lives in Michigan.
That's right.
And we're just really fortunate to have him in North Carolina with us this week. And so we dragged him into the studio and so that he can share some of this super informative stuff that I never learned as a nurse. Tim never learned as a neuropsychologist, but just so happened that our paths crossed with Dr. Gammage as friends, and then we became professional colleagues, and he has so much knowledge to share. So Dr. Paul Gammage, could you just introduce yourself a little bit? Because as I said, I'll probably mess that up as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, so I've been an optometrist for 37 years, and have really enjoyed a lot of aspects of practice. We're up near Grand Rapids, Michigan, and but I discovered early on that I also enjoyed working with kids, especially struggling learners. I know we'll get into talking some about that, but I did do a postdoctoral fellowship. Took about 4 years to finish that after my doctorate. And that fellowship was in basically visual development and vision therapy. And so that kind of started down that path of being not only in general practice and, fitting contact lenses and doing the things that most eye doctors enjoy doing, but then also working with kids and identifying those kids that were struggling learners and trying to identify, are there ways that we can help these kids? And I kind of branched out from there into sports vision, and we'll maybe get into a little more of that as well. But
Okay. Yeah. Well, in case no one did the math on that, Paul, how many years did you go to college? You did 4 years of undergrad.
Correct.
Then what was optometry?
Well, optometry school is 4 years. I actually finished my undergrad in 3 years, to be fair. So,
okay.
Of course he did.
So I was able to do it. It's getting harder and harder to do that now, but back, when I was in school, it was possible to do it if you lined everything up correctly. And I think I had to take one course in the summer to get it all, the prerequisites, but I was able to finish it in 3 years. So that actually helped a lot. And then it took about 4 years to do the postdoctoral fellowship. And that was not full-time. That was while I was in practice. So that was kind of
That's a lot of school.
It is a lot of school, yeah.
It's really hard to find somebody with that fellowship that you have, because we've tried in different locations to send a client to somebody with your specialty, and it's really tough to find a practitioner.
Yeah, if you look in the, just the general, hey, what eye doctors in the Charlotte area, you're not going to find them very easily. They're there, but they're not easy to find. And so, sometimes I even have to, if I have a patient who moves to, Dallas, Texas or whatever, I have to actually look up and see where there's other colleagues of mine who've completed that and maybe make a referral directly to them. So they are out there, but you're right, they are hard to find.
Well, for anybody who has listened to our program, they know we've talked about how we got started and where Doc was, kind of leaving the conventional work that he was doing because he was seeing things that he didn't really like as far as kids and the difficulties in school. And so that's where you and Doc's paths crossed.
That's right.
Because unbeknownst to us, we had no idea that ocular motor movement was going to cause behaviors that look like ADHD. And so we always talk on this program about upstream and downstream. So you and Doc basically met in the downstream of both of you were interacting with kids that were struggling. And then the two of you put your heads together, and then we started to do some business together. So we will get to talking about that in the next segment. But, Paul taught us so many things that we did not know. And, you go to school for a long time, you think you know a lot of things. But Paul opened our eyes, play on words, nice. But to a lot of new things. And we're excited to talk about that in our next segment.
Take a breath. Let your brain reset. We'll be right back with Dr. Tim Royer on Your Brain Matters. WSIC Local starts here.
We're going to start a big-time warm-up as we head toward the weekend. Another nice day on tap after a cool start. We get a little warmer. Temperatures climb for the afternoon into the mid-80s with plenty of sunshine. We'll call it mostly sunny. Overnight, comfortable again. We'll drop back to around 60 around the lake, but by Friday, upper 80s. And into the weekend, some humidity starts to come back, too. We'll be hovering around 90, maybe even some low 90s. Not much rain for a while. That's your forecast from the Surf Pickleball and Kitchen, WSIC meteorologist Chase Myers.
Take your life by the reins and let the horses at Willow Equine heal and empower you. Located in Mooresville, our services help with trauma, anxiety, depression, and addiction. Love life again. Visit willowequine.com today.
Here is your WSIC community calendar. First up, music returns to downtown Mooresville with the Rock the Park Summer Concert Series at Liberty Park. On Friday, June 5th at 6:30 p.m., enjoy Sail On, a Beach Boys tribute bringing the classic harmonies and feel-good sounds of the Beach Boys to life with hits and fan favorites perfect for a summer night. The free concert series also features local food trucks and hometown breweries, making it a perfect family night out in downtown Mooresville. It's finally here. Saturday, June 6th, celebrate 79 years of WSIC during WSIC Family Fest 2026 at Purple Heart Homes headquarters, 755 Washington Avenue, Statesville, USA. Enjoy a full day of free family fun, including a community yard sale, local vendors, food trucks, and live music from Kayla Vega. Kids can enjoy inflatables, lawn games, a mobile Build-A-Bear, and an ice cream truck. All completely free. Lunch plates featuring homemade barbecue chicken will also be available, with proceeds supporting Purple Heart Homes and their mission to serve veterans. For details, visit WSICnews.com. Next, a unique community event is coming to Cornelius this summer. Queens Club Lake Norman is hosting a charity poker night on Wednesday, June 17th at Lost Worlds Brewing. Doors open at 5 p.m., announcements begin at 6, and cards fly at 6:15. The event combines friendly competition with charitable giving, with 100% of the ante going directly to the charity selected by the winning player. Space is limited to just 30 players, so early registration is encouraged. For details on Queens Club Lake Norman, visit queensclubinc.org. And looking ahead to the fall, nominations and sponsorships are now open for the second annual Lake Norman Woman of the Year Gala, happening September 25th at the Brawley Estate. This year's nonprofit partner is Foster, Love, Adopt, Repeat, supporting children in foster care and foster families throughout the region. Visit lakenormanwomen.com to learn more and to nominate your Lake Norman Woman of the Year. For even more local events and community happenings, check out liveworkplaylkn.com.
We're back with more ways to understand the most powerful computer you'll ever own. Your brain. Your Brain Matters, hosted by Dr. Tim Royer, only on WSIC. Local starts here.
Okay, welcome back. We are ready to talk a little bit more about the eyes and how they matter to the brain. And just for backstory, I never learned anything about eyes and ocular motor, except just like, do you need glasses or not? So that's about all I knew. And then Doc and I had 4 kids. We never learned anything until, we had a child that needed glasses. And Dr. Paul Gammage was the person who got us those glasses when our son Joe was really little. But then we've said it on this program before, we had one of our daughters get all the way through till 3rd grade without us understanding that she couldn't see the blackboard from where she was sitting in the room. So that was sort of how did that happen? But now we're going to have our minds blown by thinking about not visual acuity, whether you need glasses or not, but something totally different that I'd never even heard of is ocular motor, which ocular is eyes, motor is the muscles that move those eyes. But I'm going to go to John because John, the business owner, got connected with Paul, and I want to get a little bit of that backstory just to lead us in.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Paul, we met, it'd be 5 years ago or so, I think. And Dr. Royer introduced us. And at the time, we were working with Liberty University. And we were doing a lot of brain training and breathing. But the athletes wanted to train more, and they were interested in their eyes. And you had done a lot of draft testing and draft work with Dr. Royer previously. And I want to unpack a little bit of that. But you had introduced me to this software program called HTS, and you said this is really what all athletes need to be working on. And we had certain athletes like Kirk Cousins who were working through HTS, the software program, training their vision every year in the off season. And that's how we met, and we started talking about vision. And I also learned so much more than I ever had before about what vision really was and what the difference was between eyesight and vision.
Oh, that's a good one.
And I want to really just throw that over to you, Dr. Gammage, and say, can you explain that a little bit to the listeners?
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, it's an important distinction because when most people go to either an eye screening, their family doctor, their primary care, they'll always have an eye chart up on the wall. They'll say, cover one eye. Can you read these letters? Most of your standard school screenings will do that as well. Just to make sure that, yes, you could see the board from the back of the room and so forth. So when you hear the words or the letters 20/20, basically all that's referring to is, yes, you can see from 20 feet, a certain size letter that somebody with standard or normal vision can also see from 20 feet.
Okay.
And so 20/40 then means you see from 20 feet where somebody with standard vision sees from 40 feet. Okay, so that's what those numbers mean. But it's only a very small understanding of what's actually happening, because we really don't see fully with our eyes, we see with our brain. So there's an element of our brain in the very back called the occipital lobe where all the magic happens. And so your eyes obviously are a very important piece of the puzzle here.
Yeah.
There's a lot of neurological activity going on as the retina perceives images, right? It sends electrical signals through the optic nerve back to the brain, and then the brain does the job of perceiving what it's actually seeing. So it's an important thing to help people understand that we really see with our brains. And so that's when we really started to unpack why we're seeing kids that may have 20/20 vision. So then their parents would assume, well, good, that means there's no problem with their eyes or their vision.
Yeah.
But then they're still struggling learners, right? They're struggling learning how to read. We know it's not an intelligence issue. So what else might be the underlying problem here?
Yeah.
And so that's when when you start looking beyond just the 20/20 element, it opens up a whole new understanding of what the brain is actually doing, which is actually a very miraculous process.
It's fascinating. I remember the first time I heard that, I couldn't believe it. I was thinking and researching, and you had told me a statistic, and I don't want to butcher it, but it's something like when someone is reading, writing, or playing sports, they're up to, I think, 17 or 20 different visual skills involved or something like that.
Yeah, that's correct. There's a lot of stuff going on. And just to kind of break that down briefly, and again, we're going to hit the real surfacey level here, but basically your eyes have to focus the image. So there's a lens inside your eye which flexes, okay? It focuses the image so that it's clear on the retina, which is the back of the eye. And so that's step one, right? Well, you have two eyes, so the brain has to actually superimpose those two images so you're seeing one. Okay, it does that automatically for most people, but not everybody.
Okay.
So, for example, it's so many times I've had a child in my exam chair, and they cover one eye, yep, 20/20. They cover the other eye, yep, 20/20. So you think, well, that's good, and must not have any problems. Well, then you start looking at how well their eyes coordinate, and they're not working together as a team. And so when I start having them look at a target, and I'm covering one eye and alternating back and forth, we'll start to discover that those eyes are moving. They're not staying stable. And then as I have them try to converge where their eyes are moving inward, and again, most people do that without even thinking about it.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden, at about the same distance that they're trying to read, at about 16 inches, all of a sudden the eyes are drifting apart and they see double.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I'll ask the child, now, when you're trying to read, do you ever see things split into two? And they will say, well, yeah.
But they don't
know that's not normal.
normal.
Correct. They almost think almost like, yeah, but doesn't everybody see that way?
Wow.
It's like, no, not everybody sees that way, and that's not supposed to happen.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so that's something called convergence insufficiency as one of the more common diagnoses that we'll see when we start really focusing on binocular vision, which is the use of both eyes together.
Yeah.
That's something that can be easily missed if you're not doing the right testing for it.
Wow. So if you find somebody who's not converging or diverging correctly, and then you told us we see with our brain, what is the brain doing when it's not getting the information we think is correct?
Yeah, good question, because the brain has a dilemma. If it's seeing two and it knows that there's not two books, right?
Yeah.
Tactily, they would have the information that says, no, there's only one book here, but I'm actually seeing two books. So that creates what we call a visual tactile mismatch, which means I know that there's only one, but I'm seeing two. And so the brain has a dilemma. It's either got to ignore one of those two images, okay, so it can mentally turn one of them off, and that's called suppression. That sets you up for developing a term you may be familiar with, which is lazy eye. We call that term amblyopia, which means you're not using one of those two eyes. And it's because the brain wants to protect itself. The brain does not like to see double vision. Right? And so it's going to do whatever it's got to do to figure out how to make this second image go away. So it usually will choose the non-dominant eye and suppress or turn that image off. So that's the first response. The second response is just to avoid that thing. You know, if I'm seeing double, and I know I shouldn't be, and it's kind of messing with my brain's ability to understand what I'm seeing, so I'm supposed to make sense out of these words on the page. I'm supposed to use the prefrontal cortex of my brain to generate visual images. So if you think about what does a good reader do, a good reader recognizes a word and makes a visual picture. That's why they'll read a book and then they'll say, I went and saw the movie, but man, the book was way better. That's because they're generating so many rich visual images in their prefrontal cortex. There's no way that they can reproduce all that in theater. But the kid who struggles doesn't see that. They're struggling to try to decode words, or they're seeing double, so that what they want to do is they just will avoid. And that's when you start getting into some of your behavioral problems as well, because if I'm avoiding this task and you keep pressing me to do it anyway, you know, then all of a sudden you can start having behavior issues.
Wow.
I
mean, I remember when you know, the first time I heard of this, the brain turns off or disengages. You know, you think of like an eye closing, but the eye doesn't close. The eye just starts to drift out, and that's the lazy. And it's so hard to see consciously. But you can see videos online. I've seen you show me where you're doing an exercise and all of a sudden, boom, that eye just drifts right out. And it's fascinating to see. And I think it's happening to all of us, or a lot of us, very often, right? And we don't recognize it. Is that correct?
It can be, for sure. The one thing that's obvious, if I were looking at you and your eye was actually turning out, everybody would see that.
Yes,
so that's called strabismus. So that's something a little different. And so... and that can also cause the amblyopia as well, that lazy eye thing. But most conditions are such where it's more of a muscle coordination issue. So that's what I was describing, where it has a tendency to want to drift out. My brain has got to do the hard work of converging them inward and maintaining that now while I do this difficult thing of tracking. So eye tracking is where when we read, where our eyes don't move smoothly across the line, they make these small jump movements called saccades. You've got to be a very good converger before you can be a good saccader.
Wow. There's so much there. And it is just mind-boggling that we're not accessing this more. But Doc talked to us just a couple weeks ago about the fact that he does this kind of assessment for his ADHD battery, because he's like, the behaviors downstream can look exactly like ADHD, but it could literally be an ocular motor problem.
Absolutely.
So we're going to go to our next segment, and we're going to unpack a little more.
Don't go anywhere. Dr. Tim Royer will be right back with more ways to make your brain work for you. Your Brain Matters on WSIC. Local starts here.
We're going to start a big-time warm-up as we head toward the weekend. Another nice day on tap after a cool start. We'll get a little warmer. Temperatures climb for the afternoon into the mid-80s with plenty of sunshine. We'll call it mostly sunny. Overnight, comfortable again. We'll drop back to around 60 around the lake, but by Friday, upper 80s. And into the weekend, some humidity starts to come back, too. We'll be hovering around 90, maybe even some low 90s. Not much rain for a while. That's your forecast from the Surf, Pickleball, and Kitchen. I'm WSIC meteorologist Chase Myers.
Looking for the perfect way to kick off summer? Make it WSIC's Family Fest 2026, Saturday, June 6th, from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. at Purple Heart Homes headquarters, 755 Washington Avenue, Statesville, USA. Live music, local food, family fun, and a chance to give back. A portion of proceeds supports veterans through Purple Heart Homes. Bring the kids, bring your friends, and enjoy a day that truly means something. Get details now at WSICnews.com.
Looking for your new summer tradition? Catch the Harbor Hippos at Huntersville Athletic Park. Gates open at 6, first pitch at 7. Family fun, giveaways, and Normie the Hippo bringing the hype all night. Grab your tickets now, just $10. Visit HarborHippos.com.
The weather's warming and your backyard is calling. G&B Energy makes it easy to bring people together. Premium grills, cozy fire features, and clean, efficient propane to make your outdoor season sizzle. G&B Energy features grills by Napoleon and Wilmington, along with expert service. Swing by Tuesdays in April and May and get your grill tank filled for only $10. You heard right, $10 Tuesdays at any G&B Energy location. Visit gbenergy.com for restrictions.
This is Sheriff Darren Campbell with the Iredell County Sheriff's Office. Every day, scammers are targeting people right here in our community through phone calls, emails, and text messages, trying to steal your money, your personal information, and even your identity. If someone calls claiming to be from a government, a bank, or even law enforcement demanding money or personal details, stop and think. Legitimate organizations will never ask for gift cards, wire transfers, or your passwords over the phone or email. If something sounds too good to be true, it usually is. Hang up, don't click that link, and never share personal information with someone you don't trust. At the Iredell County Sheriff's Office, we're working to protect our community, and we're proud to partner with WSIC because local starts here, and keeping you informed keeps you safe. Stay alert, stay smart, and don't fall for a scam.
Reimagining care, restoring trust. Discover One Health, where our mission is creating the healthcare we all deserve. One Health provides comprehensive primary care and OBGYN services across the Lake Norman area. Visit our website at onehealthmpc.com to read our story and find a provider.
But one objective.
Honey, can you turn that down?
Ladies.
Honey, can you turn it down?
Ever feel like your house is shaking every time your husband watches TV?
What?
Honey, can you turn it down?
That's not surround sound. That's hearing loss. Beltone in Mooresville and Cornelius can help. With expert hearing tests and top quality hearing aids, you can finally enjoy your TV without shaking the whole neighborhood. Visit nchearing.com to schedule your free hearing test today. That's nchearing.com.
The button pushing stops here.
WSIC. Local starts here.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. The Dow is surging. The NASDAQ, not so much. Those gains somewhat limited as AI chipmaker Broadcom and its disappointing financial outlook hold the NASDAQ back today. Airbnb CEO Brian Chesky starting a new artificial intelligence lab to develop AI models. Sources say he plans to focus on user interaction and design and is in the early stages of funding the lab. Boeing reportedly exploring hiking 737 production. The Air Current says the plane maker is considering boosting production to way more than the peak 63 jet monthly rate it has previously and publicly talked about, to a level instead that would really test the supply chain it shares with rival Airbus. And mortgage rates fell in the latest week. The average rate for a 30-year fixed loan decreasing to 6.48% from 6.53%, according to Freddie Mac. You know, a year ago at this time, the rate was 6.85%. Denise Pellegrini, Bloomberg Radio.
Don't miss a thing. Download the WSIC News app today. WSIC. Local starts here.
We're back with more of what your brain's been craving: balance, calm, and better thinking. Your Brain Matters with Dr. Tim Royer. WSIC. Local starts here.
Okay, we're back, and you all are being hosted by Nurse Amy Royer today. And in the studio, we have John Wierenga from Inner Armor and Dr. Paul Gammage, who is our guest from Michigan. He's teaching us about vision and ocular motor skills, and he's blowing our minds. So on the break, we were just like, oh my gosh, we need more time, but we're having such a good time interacting about this. So when we talk with Dr. Royer on the show, we always talk about learning. And one of his favorite things to say is the brain is always learning, even from the moment.
Machine.
A learning machine, yes. And so when you were speaking, Dr. Gammage, in the last segment, you were talking about these eyes that potentially were not working together and how that was going to potentially affect learning and also potentially affect behavior. So it was just like opening up a huge can of worms that we were all wanting to talk about during the break. So John, in his work with Inner Armor, has done a ton of work in the university settings where we have these athletes who are looking for peak performance and hoping to be famous someday as an athlete, but also they're supposed to go to class and pass classes. And so you have all of that going on. And it's been so interesting in that business to see when we integrate the vision information that it isn't just about how many, let me think of the correct terminology, your batting average, and it isn't really always about, your golf game. And it actually has a lot to do with getting the GPA that you need to stay on the field.
Definitely.
So John, tell us a little bit about how you have integrated that into your work in the university setting.
Yeah, so we always, is it student athlete or athlete student,
Exactly.
right? And depending on the program you work with, at the level, and all of that, it can vary. But we always try to incorporate both the breathing at Inner Armor and the vision. And so a lot of times, like this past year, the first semester, they're working on the breathing, the autonomic nervous system training, and they're just doing that because they don't have a lot of time. And so we're 7 minutes a day, 4 or 5 times a week. Second semester, we flip to vision, and we have them work through the vision training and the online vision, which we'll talk about. And you know what? I've probably had 7 to 10 programs, teams who at the end of the semester have all-time high GPAs. And it could
incredible.
be, correlation doesn't mean causation, right? So we don't know exactly. But I mean, I've had many coaches have said to us, we see it in the classroom. We see the training we're doing, whether it's breathing or vision, and we haven't done a study, so we don't know for sure, but they're seeing the benefits of the Inner Armor program in the classroom. And that, I always love to hear that because yes, we want them to go win championships and go on to the next level, but we want to understand and teach these people how to learn, teach these athletes how to learn. And so while you've been talking about the brain and how the brain perceives things that comes from our eyes, and so maybe just ask you let's unpack learning, the process of learning, and not just from cognition, like what you're born with your IQ, but how do our eyes contribute to learning?
Yeah, no, that's a great question because the process, believe it or not, is highly complex. I mean, there's a lot of things happening that we're really not aware of because it happens so automatically for many of us. And so we talked in the earlier segment about, the difference between eyesight and vision, where the vision is the one that actually is doing the seeing part. But if you break it down and look at the details of how somebody learns how to read, for example, there's a lot of highly complex things that happen. You first focus so the image is clear. Then you have to aim your eyes properly so that they're aligned correctly. You have to maintain that position. And then you've got to cause your eyes to make these small jump movements called saccades. So you maybe have heard the word eye tracking skills. That's what we would refer to as the ability to move your eyes in this coordinated movement fashion so that you're not losing your place, and you're also taking in visual information that's making sense to you. And so we teach our kids how to sound out words, right? English can be a very confusing language for some people. And when you start learning your letters and then learning what the difference between lowercase letters, which all look very similar, if you think about lowercase B, D, P, Q, G, right? They're all very similar. They've got a circle and a line.
Yeah.
And you've got to figure out, is that line on the right side or the left side, and so forth. But as you learn how to distinguish the fine likenesses and differences between those lowercase letters, now you have to start putting them together in words, right? And so if you look at what good learners do, what good readers do, they learn to recognize the word visually. So what we teach them to do is to sound the word out, okay? So we want you to learn what that word is. So the best way to do it is, phonics, or what we'd call phonemic awareness, right? How the word sounds. So you might look at a word and go p-a-p-er. Oh, paper. Okay, got it. Well, good readers, once they learn that, when they come to that word again, they would visually recognize that word, not sound it out again.
Okay.
But they would recognize the word, and now what they get to do is use their brain power to generate a visual image, right?
Okay.
So using that prefrontal cortex that we mentioned in the previous segment. So that's what makes reading interesting. If you're a serial decoder, if all you're doing is decoding words, so if you come to that same word you just decoded 2 pages and then now you see p-a-p-er again, well, that's not very interesting.
That sounds like hard work.
Correct. It's very hard work and it's not fun. So the number one thing when I talk to a student who struggles with reading, and I'll say, what is it you don't like about reading? And they'll just say, it's boring.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know what? If I put a page of German words in front of you and you don't know German, that would be a very difficult task. It wouldn't be very fun for you to learn that because you're not connecting meaning to those words.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so that's where the real magic starts to happen when I take a child who's visually skilled, in other words, they've got the right tools in their toolbox, and they're learning how to use those skills in the learning process, and thus in the learning process, then all of a sudden it becomes interesting, right?
Yeah.
And so, like we said earlier, what good readers do is they make a bunch of pictures. They're basically seeing a movie happen in their prefrontal cortex.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Right? If you've got a blank screen and you're just working hard at decoding words, you're either, if you have an eye tracking problem, you may be losing your place or skipping or omitting small words.
Mm-hmm.
You may start rereading the same line you just tried to read.
Yeah.
And so you work so hard, you finally make it to the bottom of the page, and you basically have a blank screen in your prefrontal cortex of your brain. And that's not interesting.
Yeah.
Right? So we want struggling readers, we want them to learn how to do what good readers do.
Yeah.
And many kids, that you would see at the athletic level, maybe in a university, they've worked hard enough to try to get good enough grades to get into the school, but they're still struggling. I just had a young man that I worked with who's an athlete, did his eye tracking test, and he was in the 28th percentile for 8th grade reading standards, and he's an adult. Okay,
Wow.
He's been struggling with this his whole life. And I
whole
asked him,
Wow.
do you enjoy reading? It's like, no, I hate reading.
Yeah.
Did you have trouble, academically? He said, yeah, school was always a challenge for me. But he was able to muscle through it, just through sheer determination to make it happen. What an advantage it would have been for him if we could have caught these things early and started teaching him the skills that you need to have to be a successful learner. It would have been a whole different ballgame for him, perhaps.
Yeah.
Wow.
We can learn these skills, right? And I think we should talk
Absolutely.
about and unpack that, like how the brain learns and the training and the teaching, because for that adult, he's now working on things, right, that he can learn to become better at those visual skills. And so reading doesn't become a boring thing or difficult.
It is true that, yes, you can make those improvements even as an adult. It just becomes much more difficult. There's a term called neuroplasticity, which really talks about how flexible your brain is, how well it learns things. Well, we have much better neuroplasticity in our brains when we're young.
Let's talk about that when we come back.
Absolutely.
Work for you. Your Brain Matters on WSIC. Local starts here.
We're going to start a big-time warm-up as we head toward the weekend. Another nice day on tap after a cool start. We get a little warmer. Temperatures climb for the afternoon into the mid-80s with plenty of sunshine. We'll call it mostly sunny. Overnight, comfortable again. We'll drop back to around 60 around the lake, but by Friday, upper 80s. And into the weekend, some humidity starts to come back, too. We'll be hovering around 90 maybe even some low 90s. Not much rain for a while. That's your forecast from the Surf Pickleball and Kitchen. I'm WSIC meteorologist Chase Myers.
Here is your WSIC community calendar. First up, music returns to downtown Mooresville with the Rock the Park Summer Concert Series at Liberty Park. On Friday, June 5th at 6:30 p.m., enjoy Sail On, a Beach Boys tribute bringing the classic harmonies and feel-good sounds of the Beach Boys to life with hits and fan favorites perfect for a summer night. The free concert series also features local food trucks and hometown breweries, making it a perfect family night out in downtown Mooresville. It's finally here. Saturday, June 6th, celebrate 79 years of WSIC during WSIC Family Fest 2026 at Purple Heart Homes headquarters, 755 Washington Avenue, Statesville, USA. Enjoy a full day of free family fun, including a community yard sale, local vendors, food trucks, and live music from Kayla Vega. Kids can enjoy inflatables, lawn games, a mobile Build-A-Bear, and an ice cream truck. All completely free. Lunch plates featuring homemade barbecue chicken will also be available, with proceeds supporting Purple Heart Homes and their mission to serve veterans. For details, visit WSICnews.com. Next, a unique community event is coming to Cornelius this summer. Queens Club Lake Norman is hosting a charity poker night on Wednesday, June 17th at Lost Worlds Brewing. Doors open at 5 p.m., announcements begin at 6, and cards fly at 6:15. The event combines friendly competition with charitable giving, with 100% of the ante going directly to the charity selected by the winning player. Space is limited to just 30 players, so early registration is encouraged. For details on Queens Club Lake Norman, visit queensclubinc.org. And looking ahead to the fall, nominations and sponsorships are now open for the second annual Lake Norman Woman of the Year Gala, happening September 25th at the Brawley Estate. This year's nonprofit partner is Foster, Love, Adopt, Repeat, supporting children in foster care and foster families throughout the region. Visit LakeNormanWomen.com to learn more and to nominate your Lake Norman Woman of the Year. For even more local events and community happenings, check out liveworkplaylkn.com.
Hi, this is Bob McIntosh with the McIntosh Law Firm in Davidson. Since 1997, we have been committed to providing our clients with competent, caring, and experienced legal services. Learn more at McIntoshLawFirm.com.
We're back with more of what your brain's been craving: balance, calm, and better thinking. Your Brain Matters with Dr. Tim Royer. WSIC Local starts here.
Welcome back. We are having the best show about the eyes. We are here with John Wierenga of Inner Armor and Dr. Paul Gammage, all the way from Michigan. And man, we are talking about ocular motor activity and how the two eyes need to work together in order for us to learn well, and then also specifically read. And then we also know about athletics needing two eyes to work together for depth perception specifically. But on the break, we were talking about how many times Dr. Gammage and Dr. Royer have worked together and literally found professional athletes whose two eyes are not working together. And you think, how did we get this far? And we were saying credit to the brain for its ability to like come up with other solutions, but also credit to these people who are unbelievable athletes. But to have gotten all the way through school, college, whatever, got drafted, and here they are at this level, and can we do something about that? So we're going to use our next few minutes to talk about what Dr. Gammage does when he finds something like this.
Yeah, that's always a surprising result, you know, when we find a professional athlete who for some reason does not have both eyes working together as a team, and they weren't aware of that.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we don't see that a lot, but I've seen it too many times where that thing that should have been caught early, right?
Yeah.
But the good news is that's still trainable.
Okay.
So I think, John, you were asking earlier about, you know, what happens with adults, you know, when we find this problem. And, you know, how many adults are using a computer screen these days? I mean, that's a very visually demanding environment.
Yeah.
So,
Guilty.
Yeah. I mean, try to find a job that doesn't use a computer. It's almost impossible anymore.
Yeah.
But when you're talking about visually demanding environments, whether it's your work setting, whether it's an athletic setting, those skills are still trainable even as an adult. And so, Yeah, so I think of, one situation, a basketball player we had been working with who discovered he was not using both eyes together. And, we were able to identify, the type of prescription that was needed for that one eye that was blurry. We, had a contact lens fit to that eye and then started to train his brain on how to use both eyes together as a team. It's definitely a steeper hill for him to climb as an adult. If it had been identified in, third, fourth, fifth grade, it would have been a much easier skill for him to learn. But he was all excited. I mean, he was a shooting guard at the time of all things. And so he was all excited as he started to really perceive true depth perception, maybe for the first time in his life. And he was all excited.
Amazing.
So,
And what I think you were saying just now is you had to approach it from two different ways. One was the acuity to fix the two eyes, help them be 20/20, but then you worked with the ocular motor coordination.
So in his situation, his brain, because of the disparity in vision quality between the two eyes, his brain would be like, well, this one's so blurry, I just don't even want to use it.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to pay attention to the clear one. And you can get very skilled with that. I mean, I know other people that, maybe had an accident where one eye was damaged, and you still can learn to use one eye. It's just not the ideal situation. So there's a reason why the good Lord gave us two eyes, right, to perceive depth. And that's a blessing, and we're seeing a beautiful golf course where it has a lot of undulation and elevation changes. I mean, it's just stunning to see that. And so if you only have one eye that you're doing those things with, you can still do the task, but boy, it's much easier to judge those distances and so forth when you've got both eyes working together as a team. So going back to your situation where you're talking about the athlete with one eye that was blurry, so just making the image clear didn't necessarily give him the skills that he needed to apply in his profession.
Okay.
And so we really kind of had to reteach the brain how to not shut that eye off, right, but to start using it in coordination with his good eye. And it was a fun process.
And teach the brain, how would we do that? What does that actually look like?
Yeah, there's a number of techniques of what we call vision therapy or vision training. And there are a number of my colleagues, across the country who specialize in this area. And so wherever you are listening from, if this sounds like a situation that you may be facing with either one of your kids or even perhaps you yourself, try to identify an optometrist in your area who is trained in developmental vision. That would really be a way to try to get connected with somebody who can help you in that area. But yes, we use various eye exercise techniques, different techniques, using like red and blue glasses, for example, and teaching the brain how to superimpose those images. So we cause them to do exercises, right? So, and it's not just about strengthening muscles. When people hear the word exercise, they think of strengthening like you'd lift dumbbells, and strengthen muscles. It's really more about muscle coordination.
Yeah.
So it's like, for example, when you don't take piano lessons so that your fingers get stronger, right? You take piano lessons so your brain can learn muscle coordination on how to apply that into music notes. Now, as you practice, it is true that those muscles may get stronger, but that's not the reason you're taking piano lessons, right?
Right.
So similar idea when we're doing vision therapy or vision training, we're trying to get those muscles to work better in a coordination fashion so that you can converge much easier and diverge, so you can connect those two tasks without having to think about it. And then that sets you up for the skills that you need to be good at eye tracking skills. So now we're getting back to the reading area.
Yeah.
So, and when you talk about a computer screen, what do you do when you look at a computer screen? You read.
Yeah.
Typically, you're reading text there, right? I suppose if you're a graphic designer, you're just maybe looking at 3D images. But all that to say, it's a very visually demanding environment. And so some people who have almost an inordinate amount of eye strain or feeling like they're getting headachy almost from doing that all day, there may be an underlying visual issue that is contributing to that eye strain and fatigue.
So going back when you and Doc started working together, Dr. Gammage has a home therapy program. It's a computerized program that he recommended to us. And then John in Inner Armor has been able to turn that into something scalable that he's worked with at Liberty University. So maybe show us a little bit about that or tell us about that.
Yeah, so we use a computer-based at-home vision training or therapy system. Again, it's called HDS. So we use these red-blue glasses.
Those are
stylish, right?
styling.
Yeah.
And I've seen groups of athletes all wearing those, doing their vision training at the same time, and it's very inspiring.
Yeah, and we talk through and we train the skills that, Paul, you're mentioning, is we start with convergence and divergence, and we teach those. And it's a protocol developed by, maybe you could explain it a little more, Dr. Gammage, of like what it is and how long it takes to kind of see improvements in some of these metrics.
Yeah, the whole idea with the red-blue glasses that you just were showing us was if you isolate the two images, so the red lens will see the target that's red, and the blue image will see the target that's blue. So now you've got an isolated situation, and now we're going to actually encourage the brain to go through various challenging processes to try to keep those images fused. And so that's the convergence and divergence I was referring to. It's a muscle coordination task.
Yeah.
And they use a RAND-dot stereogram on the screen, which is a very strong stimulus to the brain. So they're seeing 3D images there.
Yeah.
And so, and there's different versions. There's things that they put on there for younger kids that make it more interesting, like spaceships that you shoot.
Yes, personally, I use the spaceship one.
Oh, you use the
Yes,
spaceship?
sir.
Well,
It's
okay.
more
Even
fun.
some adults are like that. Yeah, it is interesting.
It's a fun
for
game.
Sure.
Yeah.
And, there's a sound component to that too, the spaceship one. And so some parents in the other room, they're tired of feeling like their roof is caving in, from the bombs blowing up. But yeah, it makes it a lot of fun to try to get through the process. And it can get, taxing. It can get a little monotonous, like anything can. And so to try to make it an interesting task so that it's accomplishing what we're desiring, which is really sticking with it and working hard to make improvement on those skills.
Yeah, that's awesome. And we see great improvement from the athletes that train. I had a third grader go through it this year, and she saw great improvements in her convergence, divergence, and her saccades. So she's training all those visual skills, and it's taking her, she's doing about 10 minutes a day, 5 to 10 minutes, depending on where she's at. And you can, the program and the software is very helpful at showing her the progress over time.
Yeah, we've used it for even just the calming purposes of like somebody whose brain has a lot of high beta, a child who's super stressed out. Like we might find that the vision has some difficulties with convergence, divergence, and we've found that the training has actually decreased the stress load in the brain once those eyes are working together better, which makes a ton of sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, we are so bummed to be running out of time because I would like to talk for another at least half hour. But Dr. Gammage, could you give us just a little statement on why your brain matters?
Yeah, the statement really that comes to mind is it really comes from the neurology perspective of what's happening with your brain. Neurologically, there's more input from one eye to your brain than all other four senses combined. That's how active this is. So the reason why our brain matters is because you actually see with your brain.
Love it. Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you, John. It's great to have you both.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Great radio doesn't end here. Catch the full episode and dive, or
So, and when you talk about a computer screen, what do you do when you look at a computer screen? You read.
Yeah.
Typically, you're reading text there, right? I suppose if you're a graphic designer, you're just maybe looking at 3D images. But all that to say, it's a very visually demanding environment. And so some people who have almost an inordinate amount of eye strain or feeling like they're getting headachy almost from doing that all day. There may be an underlying visual issue that is contributing to that eye strain and fatigue.
So going back, when you and Doc started working together, Dr. Gammage has a home therapy program. It's a computerized program that he recommended to us. And then John in Inner Armor has been able to turn that into something scalable that he's worked with at Liberty University. So maybe show us a little bit about that or tell us about that.
Yeah, so we use a computer-based at-home vision training or therapy system. Again, it's called HDS. So we use these red-blue glasses.
Those are
stylish, right?
styling.
Yeah.
And I've seen groups of athletes all wearing those, doing their vision training at the same time, and it's very inspiring.
Yeah, and we talk through and we train the skills that, Paul, you're mentioning, is we start with convergence and divergence, and we teach those. And it's a protocol developed by, maybe you could explain it a little more, Dr. Gammage, of like what it is and how long it takes to kind of see improvements in some of these metrics.
Yeah, the whole idea with the red-blue glasses that you just were showing us was if you isolate the two images, so the red lens will see the target that's red, and the blue image will see the target that's blue. So now you've got an isolated situation, and now we're going to actually encourage the brain to go through various challenging processes to try to keep those images fused. And so that's the convergence and divergence I was referring to. It's a muscle coordination task.
Yeah.
And they use a RAND-dot stereogram on the screen, which is a very strong stimulus to the brain. So they're seeing 3D images there.
Yeah.
And so, and there's different versions. There's things that they put on there for younger kids that make it more interesting, like spaceships that you shoot.
Yes, personally, I use the spaceship one.
Oh, you use the
Yes,
spaceship?
sir.
Well,
It's
okay.
more
Even
fun.
some adults are like that. Yeah, it is interesting.
It's a fun
for
game.
Sure.
Yeah.
And, there's a sound component to that too, the spaceship one. And so some parents in the other room, they're tired of feeling like their roof is caving in, from the bombs blowing up. But yeah, it makes it a lot of fun to try to get through the process. And it can get, taxing. It can get a little monotonous, like anything can. And so to try to make it an interesting task so that it's accomplishing what we're desiring, which is really sticking with it and working hard to make improvement on those skills.
Yeah, that's awesome. And we see great improvement from the athletes that train. I had a third grader go through it this year, and she saw great improvements in her convergence, divergence, and her saccades. So she's training all those visual skills, and it's taking her, she's doing about 10 minutes a day, 5 to 10 minutes, depending on where she's at. And you can, the program and the software is very helpful at showing her the progress over time.
Yeah, we've used it for even just the calming purposes of like somebody whose brain has a lot of high beta, a child who's super stressed out. Like we might find that the vision has some difficulties with convergence, divergence, and we've found that the training has actually decreased the stress load in the brain once those eyes are working together better, which makes a ton of sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, we are so bummed to be running out of time because I would like to talk for another at least half hour. But Dr. Gammage, could you give us just a little statement on why your brain matters?
Yeah, the statement really that comes to mind is it really comes from the neurology perspective of what's happening with your brain. Neurologically, there's more input from one eye to your brain than all other four senses combined. That's how active this is. So the reason why our brain matters is because you actually see with your brain.
Love it. Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you, John. It's great to have you both.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Great radio doesn't end here. Catch the full episode and dive, or